Hello, friends. Today, let's talk about the difference between complexity and sophistication, and whether simplicity is always the mark of wisdom or just a mask for laziness. There's an old proverb that goes, "A fool craves complexity, but a wise man seeks simplicity." At first glance, it sounds neat, clean, even elegant. But the more you think about it, the more you realize life doesn't operate in tidy proverbs. Life is messy, layered, and often demands a willingness to wrestle with complexity rather than escape into slogans. Take finance. If you believe the proverb, wisdom means sticking to simplicity. Savings accounts, a few shares you understand, long term patience. And yes, there's something elegant about that, and Warren Buffett has made an empire off this philosophy. But peel back the curtain, and you'll see even Buffett relies on layered strategies, complex acquisitions, and deep knowledge of corporate structures. On the flip side, unchecked complexity, like the toxic bundling of assets during the 2008 crisis, nearly destroyed the global economy. So, which is it? Simplicity builds sustainable wealth, but complexity, when understood and handled with care, is what drives real returns. Health offers the same tension. Simplicity tells us eat whole foods, sleep well, exercise regularly. These timeless practices have carried humanity across centuries, and no one can deny their effectiveness. Yet the modern world introduces new challenges and opportunities. Personalized medicine, genomics, microbiome research, AI driven diagnostics, these are not simplistic fixes, but sophisticated tools. They allow treatment tailored to the individual, reducing preventable deaths. But again, unchecked complexity has its dangers. Overtesting, medical anxiety, big pharma's profit traps. The opioid crisis is a sobering example of complexity run amok. So is wisdom found in simple prevention or in embracing complex innovation? Likely both. Consider agriculture. At its simplest, you plant one crop, wait for rain, and harvest. But monoculture farming is brittle, vulnerable to pests, disease, and climate change. The wisdom of the future lies in polycultures, precision farming with drones, soil sensors, and genetic engineering for resilient crops. Complexity here isn't greed, it's survival. Yet there's a counterpoint worth hearing. Regenerative farming and crop rotation, methods our ancestors perfected, embody a kind of sustainable simplicity that technology sometimes forgets. The danger of leaning too far into complexity is dependency on corporations for GMO seeds, on power grids for drones. When systems fail, simplicity keeps the earth alive. Education is another battlefield. Simplicity has historically meant rote memorization, drilling basics, learning ABCs, and arithmetic. That foundation is necessary, but stopping will be disastrous in a world demanding critical thinking and adaptability. Complexity in education, interdisciplinary curricula, VR simulations, adaptive algorithms, fosters creativity and prepares students for a multifaceted reality. But look closer, and you'll see the cracks. Student debt, bloated curricula, gadget driven classrooms where learning becomes fragmented. Countries like Finland prove that simple, play based models often outperform over engineered systems. Simplicity nurtures mastery, but complexity pushes the boundaries of thought. Technology is perhaps the clearest mirror of this tension. Simplicity in tech produces user friendly designs and ethical AI that people can actually trust. Complexity gives us quantum computing, neural networks, blockchain, the engines of tomorrow's breakthroughs. Yet with those engines come surveillance states, algorithmic manipulation, and data breaches. The internet revolution was born from complexity but scaled by simplicity in design. Fools either reject complexity entirely or drown in it. Wisdom lies in knowing when to embrace it and when to pare it down. Relationships show the human cost of this proverb. Simplicity says, just be yourself, be honest, love truly. And yes, those values matter, but the modern reality of relationships often requires navigating layers of complexity: emotional intelligence, therapy models, communication frameworks. These tools strengthen bonds, prevent abuse, and build resilience. But overanalysis can suffocate love, reducing intimacy to compatibility checklists and red flag spreadsheets. At their core, lasting relationships balance the simple truths of trust and vulnerability with the complex work of self awareness and communication. Politics pushes the debate to extremes. Simplicity in politics easily mutates into dangerous black and white ideologies. Us versus them, all good or all evil. Dictators thrive on that simplicity. Yet complexity, coalitions, data driven policy, nuanced compromise risks creating bureaucracies so tangled that people feel alienated. Gandhi's simplicity of principle, nonviolence, justice, toppled an empire. But would such simplicity alone solve the intricacies of climate policy, trade, or cybersecurity? Politics needs both the simple moral compass and the complex machinery to enact it. The environment may be the best example of why simplicity alone is not enough. Planting trees is noble, but it will not solve global warming. Complex climate models, international accords, carbon capture technologies, all are vital. And yet, endless summits can become performative, achieving little. Personal responsibility, reduce, reuse, recycle is a simple and powerful tool. The truth is, without large scale complexity and small scale simplicity working together, the crisis overwhelms us. Business thrives on this duality too. Simplicity says create value, treat customers well, grow steadily. Complexity scales businesses across borders with global supply chains, AI analytics, and logistics. Without complexity, innovation stalls. Without simplicity, corruption creeps in, as with Enron and other collapsed giants. The wisest entrepreneurs build on simple principles but expand through sophisticated systems. Art and creativity wrestle with the same tension. Simplicity gives us raw, emotional expression. Picasso's stripped down forms, a child's drawing that captures truth. Complexity layers technique, influence, and multimedia to birth masterpieces that transform culture. Overcomplicated art can feel pretentious, while oversimplified art risks banality. But genius often lies in moving through complexity and returning to simplicity with purpose. Science is perhaps the deepest paradox. Newton's simple apple gave us gravity, a fundamental truth of the universe. Yet today's discoveries, particle colliders, multiverse theories, AI simulations, demand staggering complexity. One without the other is incomplete. Simplicity in hypotheses gives clarity. Complexity in experiments uncovers the hidden fabric of reality. Wisdom is not in rejecting one, but in holding both together. Spirituality closes the circle. Simplicity in faith, prayer, meditation, compassion grounds the soul. But complexity in comparative philosophy, mysticism, and theology stretches the mind toward new horizons. Both paths can lead to enlightenment, but each has its dangers. Simplicity can harden into dogma, complexity can spiral into confusion. True wisdom is not choosing one over the other, but knowing when to surrender and when to explore. So, where does this leave the proverb? If you cling to it blindly, you risk stagnation. Dismissing complexity as foolish when in fact it drives progress, innovation, and resilience. But if you chase complexity for its own sake, mistaking it for sophistication, you drown in chaos, addiction, and alienation. Life isn't about simplicity versus complexity, it's about the dance between them. Wisdom is knowing when a simple principle anchors you and when a complex system propels you forward. The fool craves complexity without purpose. The fool also clings to simplicity without depth, but the wise person, they navigate both, simplifying when clarity is needed, embracing complexity when survival or progress demands it. And that, friends, is the real sophistication of life.